Cathologica, Cure for the Plague of West.
Title of the book.
Cathologica, lek na zarazę Zachodu.
Cure for the Plague of the West.
Jezus Chrystus. Proszę szanownego
Dear reader, I kindly ask for your understanding regarding the author's instability in execution, including linguistic, which constitutes the main flaw. Contrary to appearances, I am working on it.
Beware. I am intertwined. Everything is entangled in the network. The most important of them creates signs. By them we necessarily think and conquer reality. This book is about signs and their networks, about gaining power by tearing apart some and entangling us in the bondage of new networks. There's no point in hiding these entanglements behind masks of neutrality, universality, or worldliness. If someone starts itching that they're entangled in their own connections, let them scratch, preferably on the head, and consider whether they want to keep reading. Because no matter how much someone denies and struggles, the fact that they're an atheist, an orthodox believer, a liberal, a pacifist, a Catholic, a Highlander, an animist, a plumber, a Islamist, a Mazur, a blacksmith, or a charismatic, will influence what they notice, what they overlook, what they indirectly describe favorably, what they don't, and even what they consider facts. So beware when someone tells you they are neutral. Believing them makes you defenseless against subtle and hidden ideological suggestions. You don't even notice when you resistlessly adopt their worldview, just because they don't directly name it, and by pointing out others' entanglements, divert attention from their own, of which they are usually unaware. Like a thief designer who shouts the loudest, catch the thief designing their own mistakes onto others. Marketing specialists say it's weak to reveal your beliefs from the start. Frankly, I don't care. I don't want to be like those who pretend to conduct objective studies of water purity, only to sell their own filter at a promotional price in the end. I'm not smart enough to not get lost in this game, so I'll start with hardcore declarations. I will defend the elite and the people, faith and reason, economic freedom and self-sufficiency of local communities, the tradition of the church, but also its members against the traps of false alternatives and throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Once you receive such a warning, you'll be able to separate facts from values and evaluate the rationality of the arguments presented further. Are you in?
Cathologica. Therefore, I'll justify that I could think it weren't for someone who invented everything, and thus me, according to his thoughts, that made sacrifice and rituals of most cultures in history an expression of desires that find fulfillment and completion in the crucified and risen Christ, that change, i.e. the form of the Holy Mass, is not a value of a necessity, that what has changed does not have to be better than the old, and that since someone else has changed, we can also change his change back to the old, that the old might be fresher than the new, that there's no one contemporary person, that nothing is self-sufficient, independent, because things are themselves in relation to the rest of the world, that a religion that wouldn't meddle in everything, including politics, wouldn't be a religion, that religious conflict is unavoidable, because the existence of different denominations, including secular ones, result from this conflict, that we are chained to erroneous statements and alternatives imposed by opponents by simply reversing their judgments. Thus consent can be the cause of conflict, that specific customs, clothing, music, entertainment can be good and therefore bad. And finally, I state that it's possible and necessary to take matters into our own hands. How? If you endure until the end, you will find out.
Wiedz jednak, że choćby nie wiem jak się to zapierał i naprężał, to fakt, iż jest...
I won't enchant the honorable reader with flashy terms, dates, names, and surprising data. There are so many of them in the informational noise of modernity that none of us can verify them. In the face of this uncritical cult of information, I won't pretend to present only objectively, ideologically neutral facts allegedly acceptable to followers of various beliefs. After all, worldviews are different precisely because their bearers consider different things to be objective facts. Each side can claim that their interpretations are evidence that one follows from the other, while the polemicist will say it doesn't follow. Some will accuse others of theorizing and lack of evidence. So, what's the result of this impasse? Let's get back to business. We need rather asceticism in the desire for information, and in judging others, we need fidelity to principles and dealing with what belongs to us within the scope of our possibilities and duties. The universality of dreaming of coherence is the result of the existence of reason, which everyone who thinks possesses. However, thought necessarily appears as unification, as the application of the same, i.e., universal principles to the entire reality. This is one of the facts that everyone can verify. They don't require erudition, great knowledge, or distant travel. They go beyond specific histories. They constitute structures suspended above time, in eternity. I will follow them in this booklet to discover their intriguingly ordinary consequences. Therefore, the human mind is insufficient in itself and, like us, finite. Without a certain humble and underestimated ally today, it relies on the battlefield of knowledge. It always turns out that there's something that in a given situation, culture, historical moment, or current affairs transcends it. What once or elsewhere seemed wise today or here may seem foolish. What once seemed indivisible today turns out to be composed of smaller parts. What was proclaimed as proven yesterday is refuted by new data today. What was declared a consensus yesterday on which conflicting parties agreed, today turns out to be a mistake causing their conflict. The one who seemed obviously guilty and was sentenced to life imprisonment or death is acquitted today due to the recognition of unknown or obvious but overlooked circumstances. Acquitted too late, no one will compensate them for that. I want to confront this weakness in accordance with the logic, which is the basis of every thought, not just science, and find out which vision of the world, not arbitrary but containing multiple perspectives and the human place in it, is true. I will also justify whether and under what conditions finding the truth is possible, and where we should seek it, and where in the name of this quest we deny higher truths. To do this, I will question several commonly held stereotypes. I will try to indicate where and how they hinder us from understanding the desired truth. To accomplish this, I will explore the cognitive necessities in the first chapter. As an alternative to erroneous stereotypes, I will indicate error-free ones, which derive from these necessities. However, before I move on to describing the process of comprehending reality, I would like to point out that human upbringing shapes cognitive schemas. These schemas, in turn, may contradict their foundations through disorder, i.e., systemic inconsistency, and, as culturally ingrained, may be difficult to detect. I will also assume that everyone has some assumptions, and it's not fair to hide them behind three ladies called neutrality, objectivity, and impartiality. It is equally misleading to claim that all views, including religions, are treated equally, that equal rights and freedom are granted to them.
The condition of rationality is the belief in the reason which does not need justification, creating universal laws and the reality governed by them. The fundamental law is its thought, and its elemental part is the bond between this reason and the creation, immediately reflected in the bonds between individual elements of the created reality, making the world a system built on laws. This creative reason shared the ability of cognition, will, and endowment with love with one category of creatures, enabling it to know the rest. We belong to this category, humans.